I'll just talk at the moment. You just be look. I don't think so, sir.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. Were they? Oh, okay. Yep. Gotcha. You were like, oh, okay, that would be helpful. Michael.
Michael.
And if Jason's here. And if Jason's here. Yeah. Well, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah. Oh, son of a...
Kentucky doesn't play at almost 10 o'clock.
I hate those games.
All right, mic's on. All right, welcome everybody to the planning board meeting this Wednesday, March 21st, 2018. First item on our agenda is a roll call. Tonight we have Krista Switzer, myself, Phil Ruck. We've got Jeremy Chubbuck, Dave Thompson. We've got Mr. Beckett, John Beckett, and Mike Costello down in the end. And you will be a designated voting member this evening. Next up, acceptance of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, there was a revision to the original agenda.
I did see that, yeah. So everybody, we're looking at the one that has a number 6 on it. Correct?
I make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? As amended. Next up, we have approval of the minutes from February 21st, 2018. I was not at that meeting, so.
So moved.
Seconded.
Very good. All those that participated in the meeting, any edits? Okay.
I didn't see any.
What's that?
I didn't see any.
All right, any edits? No? All right, no further discussion. All those in favor of the minutes as approved? Thank you, good work on those. Next up, public hearings. We have 2 this evening. First is a minor site plan review for Cynthia McAleer. Excuse me if I butchered that, but this proposal is to convert the single-family dwelling located at 11 Ledge Hill Road, tax map 4, lot 4, to a 2-unit in the medium-density residential and limited residential districts. This is a public hearing. We'll have deliberation, findings of fact, and conclusion this evening. So can I have the applicant step up to the mic and tell us what you propose, please?
Evening. I'm Cynthia McLear. Lived in my home for 30 years in Orono. It's a large house. At the time that my husband and I bought it, it was pretty much set up with the same floor plan. It was a natural at that time, we thought, to be ultimately an in-law set up down the road. We were going to raise family, we had parents, and we were the only ones that would be likely to take care of any of them. Kids are all grown in the Navy. We've taken care of all our parents. I have one parent left that I keep hoping is moving to Maine. My husband passed away about 1.5 years ago, so I'm trying to put my ducks in order and get ourselves in a good position. My home is my home. Even though the kids are all in the Navy, this is still home. And whether my mom, in fact, moves up or not, I'm proceeding to go ahead. The house is big enough she can just accept my dog and I and live with the rest of us, as opposed to the boys' end of the house, as I call it. So the area of the house that we're proposing be a separate dwelling is pretty contained, very private, and I'd be happy to move into that side myself. But I was hoping to rent it out, not as a moneymaker, but certainly help pay my taxes, give me a little bit financial security in that regard. I have good neighbors on both sides. We're pretty much a nice little community. I like to keep it that way. But as I said, it's an area, my home I've pretty much gutted over the years, so I am not looking for someone to not take as good care of it, because it is my boys' end of the house, and I'd like to keep it that way. But I would like to rent it out, and it's pretty comfortably set up to do that, so that is what I'm applying for.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a summary prepared. This is a public hearing before we open it up. I don't know who prepared it, whether it was you, Janet. Could you just give us a brief summary? This one seems pretty simple. It's just a classification change. There's really no exterior work going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's no exterior work. Everything's on the interior. Ms. McLear currently has it set up as it was an accessory apartment, but it came to our attention through an inspection by the code enforcement officer that actually exceeds the limit of square footage that can be designated an accessory apartment. So she's coming to try and clarify that and make it a single-family attached dwelling, which essentially is 2 units that are attached by a wall on the interior.
And currently allowed in that district.
And currently allowed in that district. And she also meets the minimum lot area per family requirement for the MDR, which is 20,000 square feet per family, and her lot is 1.28 acres. So she meets that requirement. The building meets the setbacks for the zone as well. And she's able to show that the site is able to accommodate 3 parking spaces for the new dwelling unit. And she's also asking for a waiver of submission requirements because there's no site work or excavation or external construction to be done on the site. So any site plan review requirements pertaining to the external site, she's asking for a waiver for that.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the applicant before we open this up? Did we need any town staff, anything from, because she's asking for waivers, but we didn't need anything from Henry or anything like that. Good. All right, I'm gonna open up the public hearing. Invite anybody to step up to the mic and say your piece, either for or against this project. All right, I'll leave it open then, just in case the urge comes upon you, and open it up for questions. And we've had some of these before where they don't touch the outside, just some interior changes, but pretty straightforward. I couldn't come up with anything, but.
It all seems reasonable to me.
Me as well.
Agreed.
Okay,
Agree.
all right, last call on public hearing. All right, so first item, I think we need to act on waiver requests, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So, you have actually, somebody can propose a waiver request. She outlined that in the review package, all of the items that are requested. Is there a handy list for us to go off of?
Do we have to do it separately, or can we all do it all as one?
One waiver of all the submission requirements, correct? And we should list them out.
Yes.
Is that the part on the bottom of page 2, the boundary and all that?
Okay. There we go.
So it's all that, right?
Yeah, and then I think it's summarized in here. Can we simplify this, so just the bottom of page 2 of your review? Or do we need to go through the checklist and cite them?
You can grant the waiver based on
Your review,
your review.
okay. So reiterate, I guess, all of those things.
I think I'll do this right.
All right,
So I make a motion that we accept the waiver request because the project does not involve new construction or exterior site work. The applicant requests a waiver of these submission requirements that are relevant to the project involving new construction or site alterations. These include a boundary survey, topography, soil information, a stormwater management plan, grading and erosion control plans, traffic circulation plans, landscaping plans, and new sewage, water supply, and other utility plans.
very good, and those are listed out in the checklist as part of the application. Very good. All right, we have a motion, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion, additions? All right, all those in favor of the waiver request? Very good. Next up, do we have a proposed findings of fact? Does the applicant have one of these? Or does she need one? We have 2 extras over here.
Another one, too.
Okay. There's one there, too. All right, these are just proposed findings of fact that we're going to consider for the conversion of a single-family dwelling to single-family attached dwelling by Cynthia McAleer of 11 Ledge Hill Road, site plan review dated March 21st, 2018. Pursuant to Article 6, Section 18-177 of the Orono Code of Ordinances, the Orono Planning Board has considered the application of Cynthia McAleer to convert a single-family dwelling at 11 Ledge Hill Road into a single-family attached dwelling. The affected portion of the property is located in the medium-density residential district. Based on all evidence presented by the applicant, reviewing agencies, town departments, and the public, the planning board has found the following. Number 1, requirements of the district that the property contains 1.28 acres according to the tax assessor's records, and the use is allowed in the medium-density residential district with site plan review, and further that the structure containing both dwellings is entirely within the MDR district, more than 250 feet from the limited residential shoreland zone that the western portion of the parcel falls within. Are there any issues or questions there? No. Number 2, right title or interest, that the applicant has a deed for the property. No issues there. Number 3, compliance with town ordinances and codes, that the proposal does not involve any new construction or expansion of any structure and therefore does not affect subdivision, shoreland zoning, floodplain, or other land use ordinances, that the proposal complies with the residential density standards of the land use ordinance and will not affect existing setbacks. Any issues there? Number 4, utilization of the site. that the proposed use of the site will not change the footprint of the existing building or the location of the curb cut, driveway, or other external site features. Comments, questions? Number 5, traffic, parking, and pedestrian access, that access can be safely provided via an existing driveway off Ledge Hill Road, that the addition of one dwelling unit on the property will not generate auto or pedestrian traffic requiring improvements to the local street system or that would cause a danger to the public, and that sufficient parking exists within the existing driveway on the site to accommodate 3 spaces for the second dwelling unit. Any issues there? Number 6, storage of materials, that there be no exposed non-residential storage on the site. Any issues? Nope. Number 7, stormwater management and utilities, that with no external construction proposed, the proposed use will not have an impact on existing stormwater facilities or sewer and water lines or disturb soils in a way that would require erosion control. Any issues there? Number 8, natural features, water quality shorelands, that while a portion of the property is within the shoreland zone in a 100-year floodplain, that the structure containing both dwellings is not within these portions of the property and is adequately set back from their limits, and that there are no impacts to natural features, wildlife habitat, or water quality. Any concerns there?
Yeah.
Number 9, hazardous, special, and radioactive materials, solid waste management, that the proposed use will not generate hazardous, special, or radioactive materials, and that solid waste will be managed in a manner typical of a single-family home. Any issues there? Nope. 10, historic and archaeological resources, that the site is in an established neighborhood, will not involve new construction, and in any case is not known to contain historic or archaeological resources. Any issues there? Moving on, financial capacity, number 11, that the project does not entail construction of a new structure, utility lines, or other infrastructure that would have an impact on public facilities or adjacent properties, and that would require a showing of financial capacity to construct such facilities in an orderly manner. Any issues there? Number 12, signs, that this residential use will not involve signs. Comments? None. Lastly, number 13, noise and lighting, that this is a residential use allowed within the MDR district and is not a use expected to involve noise or lighting beyond the standards of the land use ordinance. Any issues there? All right. With that in mind, I think we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve this application with just a reminder that all building and fire code standards must be met.
Very good. I have a motion. I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Congratulations. All right, moving on. We have another public hearing this evening. This is an amendment to a May 18th, 2016 approved major site and subdivision plan titled The Edge at Orchard Trails, located at 111 Park Street, tax map 20-1, lot 42 in the C2 zoning district for Orion UME Edge LLC. The proposed amendment is to modify the building layout and do a minor reconfiguration of the previously approved project. Tonight we have a public hearing, deliberation, findings of fact, and conclusion. I do see the applicant is up there preparing. Can you give us a brief summary of the project? Keep in mind, I know we need you to dance around a bit, but
That's okay.
it is on the record. So.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Malinowski. I'm with Allen & Major Associates. We are the civil engineers for the project. Just to kind of give the board a brief history, back in 2015, we had presented to this board the project that the project that you see before you. It included 6 townhouses, a total of 36 units, with a total number of, 6 townhomes, 36 apartment units situated in 2 buildings for a total of 144 bedrooms. In May of 2016, the project owners opted to go with a new direction on architecture, so we had applied for an amendment to redo the floor plans of both the townhouses and the apartment units. And that is kind of the configuration that you see there. Starting back in earlier this year, Maine DOT had approached our clients to take a portion of the right-of-way along Park Street. In doing so, it adjusted the property line along Park Street. And in accordance with the local regulations, the project needed to maintain a 25-foot setback to that new property line. So the amendment that we are proposing for you today shows the reconfiguration of these two clusters of townhomes. And what we did is kind of reconfigure the spacing and shove them back to maintain a 25-foot buffer to what will be the new property line. That's the main highway. In doing that, we had a slight reconfiguration of the walkways that lead up to the front doors of the individual townhomes. We had a minor modification to grading around to accommodate the new shift to push those buildings back, as well as a slight reconfiguration of the water and sewer lines that come through those two units and tie into the municipal services. The remainder of the site stays unchanged. Those are the only two kind of configurations. Based on what was previously approved, the number of dwelling units, the number of bedrooms stay the same. The only change in the overall kind of area calculations is we had a reduction of 7.7 square feet of impervious surface out there. So that's really the only change to what was approved. So the open space calculations and all of those requirements remain the same as this for this project.
Very good. Thank you. Again, we have another nice summary prepared for us this evening. Again, this also seems to be quite simple. Really hardly any changes whatsoever, other than DOT took a chunk of the property. So, Jana, you're up.
So I think Michael explained the proposal to the project, the rationale behind why they're here. The major changes are to relocate the property line based on the main DOT taking, to then relocate the setback, which under the cluster development subdivision is 25 feet. That was encroaching on the building units 4 and 5, and so those were reconfigured to be able to accommodate the new setback based on the new property line. They then had to reconfigure the crosswalks for those two buildings as well, and realign utility connections that go to those two buildings as well. The new modifications for all the engineering went to the town's engineer for review. She had no issues with the plan that she saw. The town fire marshal also reviewed the plans in order to make sure that there was access to the buildings, and he had no issues with the plans as proposed. And we also showed the plans to the sewer and wastewater superintendent for the town, and he had no issues with the plans as well. Just want to remind the board that because it is an amendment, and focus on just the changes that were made to the plan, and that all conditions to approval that carried through with the approval back in July of 2015 still carry through with the amendment.
Right. Thank you. All right, before we open this up again for public hearing, I'm going to invite questions to the applicant from the board. I just had minor stuff. I mean, you had the letter that you submitted dated February 16, 2018, and on sheet number 2, you just mentioned, you listed all the minor changes on the sheet, and the only thing I was just looking if this is recorded. Just a minor discrepancies. Just because I happen to notice them. It does show that It says you increase the setback 25 to 25 and a half feet. So there's actually two measurements right on the sheet C1.
Yep.
Yeah, so look, there's actually two setback distances, a 25 and a 25 and a half foot, so is that?
The 25
Yeah.
is the dimension to the setback.
Okay.
Showing the 25.5 foot is to the building face.
I get you. Yep, I was questioning that. Good. That's all I got. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Invite any comments. All right, I'm going to leave it open. Do we have anything? I mean, we're just looking at the amendments.
It's
Pretty
very,
small, and they
it's very
redo-
straightforward.
Right. Less than 8 square feet of reduction. You're going to save all that stormwater runoff.
Since we're mentioning minor things.
Yes.
I have to mention something about the landscaping.
All right. Okay, so new landscaping, correct? So
Right.
I think they had the landscaping plan, just to clarify.
Yeah.
They proposed and we approved before.
Right, now, I just
Yep.
want to make one point, and that is, in the text that we got, is that you're substituting some kind of a pear for the amelanchier.
Yes.
And yet, on the drawings that we got, the amelanchier is still there.
Okay.
Good catch.
I apologize for that. We will make that change when we send them back for signatures.
Very good, thank you. Good catch. Any others? All right, last call on public hearing. Going once, twice. Public hearing is closed. All right, no waiver requests, I think, unless anybody has any other comments. I think we might be ready for proposed findings of fact.
Yep.
Do you have one of these? All right, again, these are just proposed findings of fact for the Edge at Orchard Trails by Orion UME Edge LLC. This is amendment number 2, subdivision and site plan review, dated March 21st, 2018, pursuant to Article 6, Section 18-177, the site plan review, and Article 7, Section 18-210, the subdivision review, Section 18-136, the cluster development of the Orono Code of Ordinances. The Orono Planning Board has considered the application of Orion UME Edge LLC to further amend its final subdivision and site plan for a 61-unit cluster development with a maximum of 239 bedrooms consisting of 2 multifamily structures containing 12 dwelling units per structure, for a total of 24 units, 6 single-family attached townhouse structures with 6 units per building, for a total of 36 units, a single-family dwelling, and a facilities building plus community and green open space. The development site is located in the Commercial 2 District off Park Street in Washburn Place. Based on all evidence presented by the applicant, reviewing agencies, town departments, and the public, the Planning Board has found the following. Number 1, extent of the amendment. That the proposed amendment does not change the character of the development from the final subdivision and site plan approved by the Planning Board on July 15th, 2015, or the amendment to the final subdivision and site plan approved by the Planning Board on May 18th, 2016. That the proposed amendment does not significantly affect previous findings related to the street, vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and traffic circulation, parking, utility systems, open space, water resources, and other natural resources, pollution control, wastewater control, solid waste management, stormwater management, and drainage improvements, signage, lighting, landscaping, security, or noise control. That the proposed amendment does not change the Planning Board's previous findings with respect to financial and technical capacity, and that the proposed amendment does not change the Planning Board's previous findings with respect to conformity with other local and state laws and regulations, including the standards of the Commercial 2 District, the cluster development provisions of Article 5, Section 18-136 of the Land Use Ordinance, the Main Site Location of Development Act, and the Maine Department of Transportation Traffic Movement Rule. Are there any issues with that? Hearing none. Number 2, open space, wildlife habitat, and recreation land, that the amended development plan does not alter the previously designated and approved open space areas as required under the clustered development provisions of the land use ordinance. Are there any issues there? Hearing none. Number 3, other findings, that all other findings of the planning board with respect to this development at its meeting of July 15th, 2015, and all conditions of approval and requirements pertaining thereto are unchanged and remain in place. Any issues there? Hearing none. I think we are now ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal with the following 2 conditions. 1, that all conditions attached to the original approval of the Edge at the Orchard Trails apartment development remain in force, including all conditions and agreements that must be met or executed before issuance of building permits or certificates of occupancy as appropriate. A summary of chart and conditions and agreements is attached. 2, that the signed amended subdivision plan to include conditions of approval that run with the property be recorded within 90 days of approval of the amended plan.
Thank you, Jeremy. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Very good. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Very good. We do have one item on the discussion for this evening. This is also a request by Orion UME Edge LLC to extend the period of site plan approval beyond 3 years for the major site and subdivision plan titled Edge at Orchard Trails.
So in preparation for this meeting, I reached out to the town's attorney to discuss the expiration of site plan approvals. And specifically, I was looking to find out if a site plan approval expires 3 years after the original approval, or if it's three years after an amended approval. So they asked for, they came for their original approval in July of 2015. So would that approval be valid through till 2018, or every time that they've come for an amendment and been approved, does the 3 years then start on that date? And the response that I've got back from the town's attorney is that it actually runs from the original approval date, which would be, again, is July 2015, so 3 years from there would bring you to July 2018. I brought this to the attention of the developer's representative, and we've had back and forth discussion about it, and he has indicated to me that the developer is going to request to the planning board to ask for an extension on the site plan, the date of the site plan, to ask for an extension for building, and ask that it be extended an additional 3 years. We are still, the town staff is still in the process of speaking with the town attorney to gather information pertaining to that request. It's not a simple request. It's actually a little bit more complex because there's actually been some changes to the ordinance that would be reviewed to review this site plan and subdivision since the original approval date. And so staff needs some time to be able to summarize that information from the town's attorney, and to then present and discuss it with the representative of the developer and the developer themselves, and to have a discussion. And then we would be able to have information for the board to be able to make a decision. So staff recommended that we make this a decision item, a discussion item instead of an action item this evening, so that no formal action would be taken this evening, so that the developer's representative can deliver he has a prepared letter from the developer providing their thoughts on why they're requesting an extension and why they believe that they need the extension. But this provides an opportunity for him to deliver that and for the board to then ask questions of the representative and also of town staff before putting this on as an action item on the agenda.
Okay. I don't recall, do we have any precedents for this? I'm just trying to think back. Mr. Thompson,
We
yeah,
gave Dirigo Pines an extension,
that's what I was wondering, yeah.
and that was not long ago,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe a year ago or so.
Right, because July is fast upon us, so,
Does
Yeah.
just asking for the extension cause them to get an extension until we come up to a reason to grant it or deny it? If we haven't made a decision up until the time that they expire?
They could ask for the request an extension this evening, and you could table it, but it doesn't like
It doesn't
reset.
reset. It's not
No.
like hitting the basketball rim and resetting the shot clock.
Right, right. Yeah, and it's at the discretion of the planning board, and you would have, there's 2 findings within our ordinance that would have to be made, and that is there adequate reasons why the work cannot be conducted at the time? And also, does it still meet the standards for site plan review as contained in the site plan review article of the ordinance?
okay, well, I guess you propose that they give us a letter and we, just a-
He's gonna read it into the record, and we actually have copies as well.
Logan.
Hello. My name is Michael Malinowski. I'm with Allen & Major. We had received an email from the developer early this afternoon, and we'd like to read that into record. To whom it may concern, we request a 3-year extension of our site plan approval at 111 Park Street, Orono, Maine. The introduction of 853 beds from the avenue saturated the student housing market in Orono. Our property, Orchard Trails, is finally bouncing back to normal occupancy. Moreover, the University of Maine's decision to allow residents of 5 northeast states to pay in-state tuition has started to have a positive effect on freshman enrollment. We anticipate that this will continue enrollment growth and will lead to an increased number of students seeking off-campus housing in Orono, respectively Orono student housing.
Thank you. So, I'm just curious, whether it's appropriate now, I'm just thinking of changes in our land use ordinance since this was approved in July of 2015. Could you refresh the board's memory, or should that not occur this evening?
Sure. So within the performance standards, there is the cluster development provision within the performance standards, and the density for the units per, bedrooms per
That's right,
acre was decreased. There was also, at the time of the original approval in July 2015, was also almost happening at the same time that the comprehensive plan for the town was being finalized and adopted by the council. And there were things that came out of that pertain to developments such as the Edge and, you know, the larger student complexes. And so we are speaking with the attorney to see if those types of changes, the comprehensive plan, the intent of the comprehensive plan, and the change from the performance standards would have some sort of effect on extending the approval.
So does that mean that if the planning board potentially approved the extension, that likely a new review would be required?
Sorry, say that again?
So if the planning board approved the extension at some point, would that mean that in essence, because the standards have changed since the original, that a new review would be required of a certain level?
If you approved the extension, then they would be able to have, go
As
with,
is, yeah.
as is.
So it's grandfathering it then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? I mean, I'm listening to this. I am really curious as to what our town attorney is gonna have to come up with before we really go too far with this discussion. Because we could suppose a lot of things, but until we get a legal opinion, I'm not sure that we need to go any further.
Because I wasn't here for the first approval in 2015 and for the amendment that was done in 2016, and I wasn't here for the adoption of the comprehensive plan, I welcomed the town manager, who was here during that time, to come forward and answer any questions that you might have as well, if there's anything that you have, or if, I just wanted to have that dialogue open.
There's 4 of us that sat through that,
Okay.
the whole 2 and some years of that. So I do recall, discussion about what we were going to do with, the succession of large student complexes that came before us. This one beat that cutoff date.
What about Dirigo Pines? I thought we gave them an extension.
I think, yeah, Chris had mentioned that. I think you're right on
So
that.
we've already set a precedent, haven't we?
Right. But at that time, I think when we gave that extension, none of this was finalized, or we had completed that discussion, so.
The major difference between, and there was one for the Village Green for the library where they came forward also and
Yes,
asked for an
that's right,
extension. And the major difference there is that there were no major changes to the ordinance that would affect the approval.
Correct, right. Have you done any preliminary assessment to see how the new ordinance changes, how many units that would affect, or what they could propose? Have you looked at that already?
Yes.
Well, just out of curiosity, what are the numbers?
So it's 16 units per acre, and they have 10.28 acres.
Okay. And
Sorry,
so it's
16 bedrooms per acre.
Right, so it's 239,
39.
and you'd lose 70 beds?
70 beds?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
right now, our approvals haven't run out. So any ordinances that were in effect at the time of the approval would stay standing. We haven't, the approvals haven't lapsed. So even if we have an extension,
Yep.
we still haven't lost our original approvals. So therefore, any changes theoretically shouldn't take effect on an extension. They should just kind of continue the grandfathering of those rules. And that's kind of what we were under the premise of when they had their initial approvals. We came back, and typically it's if you have some sort of actionable item by a body or board, that typically starts the clock, and your approvals go from when that actionable item was taking place. So we had our approvals in 2015. We had another actionable item in 2016, which theoretically would carry another kind of duration of the permitting process, and that was kind of what our assumption was. And then therefore, we were back before tonight for another actionable item.
So remind me again when the amendment number 1 in 2016? Okay.
May of 2016.
So that would give you until May of next year
2019.
to start construction,
That's,
if we were to,
Right. But,
Yeah.
so, like I said before,
Yeah.
I reached out to the town's attorney to find out if that was how it's interpreted, and
and it wasn't.
And it's
Yeah.
not, and, there's some reason for that, is that there's some safety elements to be able to be protected, that you can't continue to be able to, every time you have a minor change, or to delay the process, and therefore that you would be able to circumvent going through some of the, any changes to the ordinance that were done for public health, safety, and welfare. And so it makes sense that it would be from the original date, and that it would carry through with the original, with the ordinance, land use ordinance criteria, standards that were there when it was approved originally.
Other questions? So we would anticipate by the next planning
Yes.
board meeting that we will have a legal opinion.
Yeah, so this week, next week, we will be in contact with, continue to be in contact with the town's attorney, be in contact with Michael, and he will be in contact with the developer in making sure that we're all on the same page and that we can move forward. And we foresee this being on the April planning board agenda.
My preference is to wait to see what the town review is gonna be before we
Yeah.
move
I
too far.
think that's
with
the only thing we can do.
And that's our recommendation. This all happened today, and so we want to be able that we're clear and that we're able
Okay.
to speak to the planning board clearly on this.
Okay, do people agree with that? I mean, I don't want to
Absolutely.
proceed with this discussion until I hear more. But-
Agreed.
Do you have, scheduled, what's the next scheduled in April?
21st. It will be
Third Wednesday of every month.
18th?
April 18th.
Okay.
Do we have other items while we're on discussion for next month? Anything in the pipeline? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further comments? All right, we're moving on. Adjournment and signing of Mylars. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
A good second?
Seconded.
Any further comments? All those in favor? We're adjourned. Mylars in the back, I believe.